Hi students, I just wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about the synthesis essay. Going over the outlines for the synthesis, one thing I noticed is that a lot of students seem to be organizing their paragraphs so they have one source per paragraph. Rather than thinking about what are the ideas I want to get across in the essay, what are the topics I want to discuss, students are thinking, what are the sources I need to include? With synthesis means combination. If you'll remember back to the assignment sheet, for instance, it talks about combining ideas. And so in a synthesis essay, the way you want to use sources is combine the sources. And that's really kind of the heart of what you want to get at. That's why I created this synthesis worksheet for you guys. So you guys could see kind of, here's some possible essay paragraph topics. Here's the information from multiple sources for them. And then you can just plug this information from this worksheet into your essay. And that way you can combine sources. It's really best to have you want to have at least one paragraph that uses two different sources. It's the more the merrier. If you have a paragraph that uses all three of the sources you use, remember you only need 3 sources. 2 of them need to be sources we read in class. The third source can be one we read in class, or it can be an outside source. One thing I'd suggest is trying to have at least one paragraph with 2 sources at minimum. But the more you can have, the better. If you can have all of your body paragraphs include 2 sources, that's really going to be a much stronger essay than only having 1 source per paragraph, which is going to run you into trouble when I get to the synthesis portion of the rubric and I don't see much synthesis between sources. The more you can do to explain how the sources relate to each other also, such as in the conclusion where you're explaining how your body paragraphs relate to each other, that's a good place to tie sources together as well. So let's say I want to write about an essay talking about how one of the paragraphs is going to talk about how really all of these things that the people want could be taught in the same history class. They aren't necessarily exclusive. The people seem to be fighting with each other, but I want to write an essay which shows that all of these people could be agreeing with each other in some way. So I'm going to take this information on what they think is important and try to show that all of these things could be important at the same time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I've got this, my synthesis worksheet here. And I can't really copy and paste that, can I? Here we go. I'm going to come up here and open up a new So I've got that part. And this part. And now I've got this part. So now I've got 3 different sets of information taken from my synthesis worksheet. I'm going to try to put all these in the paragraph about history. I'm teaching history. So I'm going to start off with the topic sentence, which kind of reflects the idea that I want to get across to the reader. History teachers feel like they are fighting against each other. Parents, textbook publishers, and administrators. But really the goals of all these groups aren't as at odds as it may seem at first glance. The things they want can all be achieved in the same history class. Some people like Danny Krieger want students to learn about American heroes. I'm going to put Levy there, since Krieger is quoted in Levy's article. And if the reader goes and checks for Krieger on my Works Cited page, they will not find Krieger. Others, like the College Board, want to prepare students for college by having them engage in critical thinking. David Tyack wants students to think about history from multiple perspectives. I'm going to go back and add Levy at the end of the College Board sentence also. Tyack, the reader can go and see Tyack in my Works Cited and know what that's referring to. James Lowen, meanwhile, wants them to learn about social class and its impact. So now I've got the different things that each one wants to include, that each one thinks is important. All of these things are not mutually exclusive. Consider teaching the civil rights movement, for instance. Tyack's approach would look at how the civil rights movement impacted African Americans, whites, women and children, businesses, and the country as a whole. So, for instance, he'd be interested in looking at things like how much did black women improve due to the civil rights movement, and how much were they still held back and needed the women's movement also. He'd look at things like how did it help African Americans? How did it help African Americans in the North and in the South? So he'd look at it in different regions, and he'd want to see different perspectives. And some of those perspectives would come from different people. come from different civil rights leaders. Who are the heroes that Krieger wants students to learn about? Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King, for instance, worked together on the Montgomery bus boycott. Leaders like Medgar Evers fought for integration of schools. So you've got basically a list of some different heroes that would make Krieger happy. This is also showing how, while there was oppression, such as forcing African Americans to sit at the back of the bus, in order to separate schools, we learned from this oppression and progressed as a society. This shows the process the College Board wants to teach. Meanwhile, students would also learn about how things like integrated schools, or integrated colleges specifically, increase economic opportunities for blacks. And how many more lived in poverty before this change. This would satisfy Lowen's push for social class. So basically what I've done there is taken information from all the different sources and connected them into the same paragraph. And that's kind of an example of what synthesis can do. Synthesis isn't just about using one source, then using another source, then using another source. I don't want to only see that you can read and understand the different sources, but kind of what I'm looking for is, can you draw connections between them? Can you see how they're related? Can you see how all of them are talking about the same issue and how all of them are part of the same conversation? So what you want to try to do is create a paragraph that kind of looks like this one, that brings together different strands and different strings of information from the different paragraphs. I hope that helps you guys think about the essay and end up writing a much better, stronger essay. Thank you for your time. Goodbye.